The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm, golden glow over the dense swamp, where shadows danced between the tangled roots and lily pads. The air was thick with the sounds of nature, a symphony of croaking frogs and rustling leaves, when suddenly, a heart-wrenching sob broke through the melody of the wild. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Snapper, a formidable crocodile with scales that shimmered like emeralds in the light, lay lazily on a sun-drenched rock, basking in the warmth. His eyes, sharp and alert, flicked toward the source of the sound, a soft, plaintive wail that echoed across the still water. Intrigued, he turned his massive head, his nostrils flaring as he caught a whiff of something unfamiliar yet compelling. There, on the muddy bank, sat a small girl, her tiny frame hunched over as she clutched her knees tightly to her chest. Tears streamed down her cheeks, glistening like the water around her, as she looked lost and alone in a world that seemed far too big and frightening. Snapper felt an unusual stir within him, a mix of curiosity and an instinct to protect. He had seen many humans before, but never one so vulnerable. Slowly, he edged closer, the soft splash of water beneath him breaking the stillness, wondering what had driven this child to such despair in a place where only creatures of the wild roamed. The girl's cries tugged at something deep inside him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to understand what had happened. Lily, the girl on the bank, sniffed loudly, wiping her runny nose with the back of her hand. She was lost, utterly, completely lost. It had been a fun adventure to follow a butterfly deeper into the woods, but now, surrounded by trees that seemed to close in on her, the fear bubbled up. "Where are you, Mommy?" she whimpered, her voice cracking as she choked on her sobs. She looked around, scanning the foliage for any sign of familiar faces, but all she saw were the tall trees and the murky water that sparkled ominously in the fading sunlight. The cries that had echoed in the swamp had quieted down, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the distant croaking of frogs, but to her, they felt like the whispers of the swamp taunting her solitude. Snapper watched intently, his heart, a crocodile's heart, fierce and wild, felt a tug of empathy. He had spent years lurking in these waters, observing the world from beneath the surface, often curious about the strange, two-legged creatures that came and went. Most humans ran away from him, screaming in terror, but this girl was different. There was no scream of fear, just despair. He sensed her loneliness, and an unfamiliar warmth filled his chest. He was not just a crocodile, he was a creature of instinct, and instinct told him that she needed help. Summoning his courage, Snapper lifted his head and let out a low grunt, hoping to attract her attention. The sound echoed through the stillness, and Lily's head snapped up, her wide eyes meeting his. For a moment, time stood still. The wild creature before her was enormous and fearsome, its jaws lined with sharp teeth, yet something in its gaze seemed softer, almost gentle. She held her breath, uncertainty coursing through her veins. The stories she had heard about crocodiles flashed through her mind, creatures that lurked beneath the water, waiting to snap up anything that came too close. But as she stared into Snapper's eyes, she felt an unexpected spark of connection. "Please don't eat me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The tears continued to flow, but she couldn't bring herself to look away. Snapper, taken aback, froze in place. He didn't want to hurt her. In fact, he felt a surge of protective instinct that was completely foreign to him. Maybe it was the vulnerability in her gaze, or perhaps the tears that glistened on her cheeks, but Snapper knew he had to do something. With deliberate movements, he slid closer to the bank, the water lapping gently against his thick, scaly body. Each gentle ripple felt like a step closer to the girl, and with every inch, he hoped she would understand he meant no harm. Lily, sensing the movement, found herself holding her breath again, the tension building as Snapper breached the surface, his powerful form emerging from the depths. Instead of the aggressive lunge she had anticipated, he simply rested his large head on the bank, gazing at her with a mix of curiosity and concern. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, girl and crocodile, two beings from entirely different worlds. Snapper's dark eyes, usually fierce and predatory, seemed to hold a glimmer of understanding. Lily's heart raced, but not with fear. There was something magical about the moment, an unspoken bond that began to form between them. "Are you a friendly crocodile?" she asked, her voice shaky but filled with a flicker of hope. Snapper cocked his head to the side, as if contemplating her question. He may have been a creature of the swamp, known for his powerful jaws and stealthy ways, but at that moment he felt an overwhelming urge to protect this small, fragile girl. "Yes, I'm friendly," he seemed to communicate through his soft grunt. In that instant, Lily smiled through her tears, feeling a warmth spread through her heart. She couldn't believe she was talking to a crocodile, but somehow it felt right. "My name is Lily. I'm lost and scared." The admission brought a fresh wave of tears, but this time they were accompanied by a sense of relief. Snapper, sensing her fear and sadness, felt compelled to act. He inched closer, his powerful body creating small waves as he moved. "If you're lost, I can help you," he seemed to say with his gentle gaze. Lily looked at him, feeling a mix of disbelief and gratitude. Here was a creature that could have been a danger, now offering her a lifeline. "Really?" she asked, her voice quivering. Snapper nodded, his massive head dipping slightly as he communicated his promise. "But how? You can't talk like humans." With a soft huff, Snapper glanced toward the winding river that meandered through the swamp, dotted with tall grasses and thick reeds. "I know these waters better than anyone," he seemed to imply, his eyes narrowing as he focused on the direction from which she had come. "Follow me, and I'll help you find your way back." As Snapper turned back to the water, Lily felt a surge of hope. Perhaps this encounter was not as terrifying as she had initially thought. Maybe this crocodile was more than just a creature of fear, he was a friend. Gathering her courage, she took a hesitant step closer to the water's edge, feeling the soft, muddy ground beneath her feet. But just as she reached out, a loud rustling in the bushes nearby startled both of them. Snapper froze, his instincts kicking in as he turned his head sharply in the direction of the noise. Lily gasped, instinctively stepping back as her heart raced once more. "What was that?" she whispered, eyes wide with fright. Snapper's muscles tensed, ready for anything. He could sense danger. "Stay behind me," he seemed to communicate, his gaze focused on the thick foliage. Moments later, a figure emerged from the shadows, a poacher, grinning wickedly as he spotted the girl and the crocodile. Well, what do we have here?" the poacher sneered, his eyes glinting with greed. "A little girl all alone with a big, tasty crocodile. This is my lucky day." Lily's heart sank as she realized the danger they were in. Snapper shifted his weight, positioning himself between the poacher and Lily. "Run," he seemed to say, urgency vibrating through his powerful body. But Lily stood frozen, unable to move as fear gripped her. The poacher chuckled, brandishing a net in his hands. "No need to be scared, little one. I'm just here to catch myself a crocodile." His eyes gleamed with excitement, oblivious to the growing tension in the air. Snapper, feeling the girl's fear and desperation, knew he had to act. This was not just about him anymore, it was about protecting Lily, too. He let out a low, threatening growl, warning the intruder to stay back. "Get away from her," he roared, his voice deep and echoing through the swamp. The poacher hesitated, caught off guard by the sudden ferocity of the crocodile. "You think you can scare me, you oversized lizard?" he taunted, stepping closer, his confidence growing. Lily, feeling a surge of courage from Snapper's bravery, took a step forward. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. "Leave us alone," she shouted, her voice trembling but filled with determination. Snapper's heart swelled with pride at her bravery. He knew they were facing a dangerous threat, but together, they had a chance. "Lily, we need to show him we're not afraid," he urged her silently. With a sudden burst of energy, Snapper lunged forward, splashing water everywhere as he positioned himself as a barrier between the poacher and Lily. The poacher stumbled back, eyes wide with shock. "What the?" he stammered, realizing the crocodile was not backing down. "Now's our chance." Lily yelled, her heart pounding. She felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins, fueling her courage. "Let's scare him away." Snapper bared his teeth and hissed, the sound resonating through the air. The poacher, now recognizing the danger, took a few hesitant steps back, his bravado fading. "This isn't over," he shouted, but he turned to flee, knowing he was no match for the determined duo. As the poacher disappeared into the thick underbrush, Lily turned to Snapper, her face lighting up with relief and gratitude. "We did it," she exclaimed, laughter bubbling up despite the tears still on her cheeks. Snapper's fierce demeanor softened, and he nodded slowly, allowing a small grin to spread across his snout. Together, he seemed to convey a feeling of triumph washing over them. Lily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of fear lift off her shoulders. "Thank you, Snapper. You saved me," she said, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Now," Snapper replied, his deep voice resonating in her mind, "let's find your way home." With newfound determination, Lily felt a spark of hope igniting within her. She was no longer just a lost girl in a scary swamp, she was a brave adventurer with a loyal friend. Together, they set off toward the winding path of the river, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow over their journey, Lily glanced at Snapper with a smile. "I never thought I'd be friends with a crocodile," she said, laughter dancing in her voice. "And I never thought I'd want to protect a human," Snapper replied, his eyes sparkling with an understanding that transcended their differences. Their bond was forged in that moment, two unlikely companions united by courage, friendship, and the promise of adventure as they navigated the mysterious waters of the swamp together. Lily's heart raced as she stood frozen on the riverbank, her wide eyes locked onto the enormous creature before her. Snapper, the crocodile, paused his approach, sensing the palpable fear radiating from the girl. She was so small and vulnerable, clutching her knees to her chest, and he couldn't help but wonder why she was here all alone. It was unusual for a human to be in this part of the swamp, especially a child. Normally, the sounds of laughter and chatter filled the air whenever humans visited, but today, all he heard was her quiet sobs punctuating the stillness. Snapper tilted his head, his dark eyes studying her carefully. He could have been just another predator, hungry and ready to strike, but something deep within him stirred at the sight of her tear-streaked face. He felt a strange pull, a desire to understand her pain. The sun shone down, casting shimmering reflections off the water's surface, and for a moment, the world around them faded away. Lily's mind raced as she registered the enormous reptile slowly advancing toward her. She had heard stories of crocodiles lurking in these waters, waiting to snap up anything that ventured too close. Her instincts told her to run, but her legs felt like lead. Instead, she stood there, mesmerized and terrified, her heart pounding in her chest. The creature's rough, scaly skin glistened in the fading sunlight, and its sharp teeth were partially exposed in a menacing grin. Yet, there was something different about Snapper. There was no growl or hiss. He moved cautiously, as if he were trying to communicate rather than intimidate. With every inch he closed, Lily's breath quickened, yet she felt an inexplicable sense of connection. It was as if she could sense his curiosity mingling with her fear. Just a few moments earlier, Lily had felt utterly alone, abandoned in this vast wilderness. She had wandered away from her family during a picnic, chasing after a colorful butterfly, and now she was lost. Her sobs had echoed through the trees, bouncing back to her in a cruel reminder of her situation. The emptiness around her had felt suffocating. But now, here stood this giant creature, watching her with something akin to concern. As Snapper edged closer, he let out a low grunt, a sound that startled Lily but also intrigued her. It was a noise she had never heard from a crocodile before, soft, almost gentle. "Please don't eat me," Lily whispered, more to herself than to Snapper, as she took a hesitant step back, unsure of how the crocodile would react. But instead of lunging, Snapper merely blinked slowly, seemingly puzzled by her words. This unexpected interaction sparked a flicker of courage within Lily. Could this creature truly understand her? She decided to test the waters, literally and figuratively. "I'm lost," she said, her voice trembling but steadying as she spoke. "I don't know how to get back home." Snapper tilted his head again, and for the first time, Lily noticed the intelligence in his eyes. He didn't seem like a mindless predator, he was curious, as if he were weighing her words. It was a strange moment, one that seemed to stretch on endlessly. Lily could hardly believe she was talking to a crocodile, but the fears that had gripped her heart began to loosen its hold. There was something about Snapper that felt oddly comforting. Maybe it was the way he sat there, allowing her to take in the enormity of his presence without rushing or forcing her into a decision. The swamp around them began to come alive again, the croaks of frogs and rustles of leaves filling the air, but Lily remained focused on Snapper. The water rippled as he moved slightly closer, and she couldn't help but admire the way the light danced on his scales. "You're not like the others, are you?" she mused aloud, her voice a mix of wonder and disbelief. Snapper seemed to understand, letting out another low grunt, and for a moment, the world felt right again. "Maybe you can help me," she continued, her eyes lighting up with a mix of hope and desperation. "If I can get back home, I'll make sure to tell everyone how nice you are." The thought made her smile, and she watched as Snapper blinked at her, as if contemplating her words. Could a crocodile really be her ally in this moment? She had read fairy tales where animals helped lost children, and perhaps today was her turn for a magical encounter. Yet, just as she felt a glimmer of hope, a sudden rustle from the nearby bushes shattered the moment. Both Lily and Snapper turned their heads, startled by the sound. Lily's heart sank as fear crept back in. "What was that?" she whispered, gripping her knees tighter. Snapper, too, seemed alert, his body tensing as he looked toward the source of the noise. "Is it another crocodile?" Lily wondered aloud, remembering the warnings she had heard. She had no idea how Snapper would react to another crocodile, or whether he would defend her. The shadows in the bushes shifted, and Lily felt a knot form in her stomach. If there was another predator nearby, would Snapper protect her? Just then, the underbrush parted, and a figure emerged. It was a poacher, a man with a scruffy beard and a greedy glint in his eye. He had been lurking, watching Lily and Snapper from a distance, but now he stepped forward, revealing himself. The sight sent a chill down Lily's spine. "What do we have here?" he sneered, eyeing Snapper as if he were a trophy. "A little girl and a crocodile? This is too easy." Lily's heart raced as she realized the danger they were in. The poacher didn't just see Snapper as a creature to be feared, he saw him as a prize. "Snapper," she cried out, panic flooding her voice. "We have to get out of here." But Snapper didn't move. He remained still, watching the intruder with an intensity that made Lily feel a little safer. "Look at that, a little girl trying to protect her pet crocodile," the poacher mocked, advancing slowly, his net swinging at his side. "You think he'll save you? I've dealt with plenty of these creatures." Lily's heart sank further. She realized this man was a threat, and Snapper might not understand the danger he posed. "Snapper, please," she urged, desperate for the crocodile to understand the gravity of the situation. "We have to run." But Snapper remained unfazed. The poacher's taunts only seemed to ignite something fierce within him. His eyes narrowed, and he let out a deep rumble, a sound that echoed across the water and made the poacher take a step back. This was no ordinary crocodile. Snapper was not about to let anyone harm the girl who had shown him kindness. The poacher's confidence wavered, but he quickly recovered, tightening his grip on the net. "You're just a dumb animal," he sneered, raising his net as if to strike. Lily's fear morphed into resolve. She wouldn't let Snapper face this danger alone. "Snapper, you have to show him. Show him you're not afraid," she shouted, her voice strong despite the fear coursing through her. Snapper seemed to understand, and with a sudden surge of energy, he lunged forward, snapping his powerful jaws just inches from the poacher's face. The man stumbled back, wide-eyed, his bravado melting away in an instant. The sudden display of strength from Snapper was enough to send the poacher into a panic. "Stay back," he shouted, swinging the net wildly. "I'm not afraid of you." But Snapper didn't flinch. He stood his ground, muscles coiling beneath his tough skin, ready to protect the girl who had spoken to him with kindness. "Get out of here," Lily shouted, backing up as Snapper advanced. She felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. They were in this together now. With a fierce roar, Snapper charged, splashing water everywhere. The poacher, realizing he was outmatched, turned to flee. "This isn't over," he yelled, disappearing into the dense foliage, leaving behind a trail of chaos. As the danger passed, Lily breathed a sigh of relief. "You did it, Snapper," she exclaimed, her heart racing with adrenaline. She looked at the crocodile with wide eyes, realizing the bond they had forged in such a short time. Snapper turned to her, his eyes glinting in the sunlight, and for the first time, she felt completely safe. Lily knelt beside the water's edge, watching Snapper with newfound admiration. "You're not just a crocodile," she said softly. "You're my friend." Snapper blinked at her, and in that moment, she understood that they had faced a common enemy and emerged stronger together. The sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the swamp, and the world around them transformed. What had started as a frightening encounter had blossomed into an unlikely friendship. Lily knew she was no longer alone in this vast, intimidating wilderness. With Snapper by her side, she felt a spark of hope ignite within her. They would face whatever came next together. But as they settled into a quiet moment, a new question loomed in the air: what would happen next? Would they be able to find a way back to safety, or would more challenges arise in this unpredictable swamp? Lily's heart swelled with excitement and a hint of fear, knowing that whatever awaited them, they would face it together. Lily's heart raced as she took a cautious step back, her wide eyes locked onto Snapper. The creature before her was massive, with rough, scaly skin that glistened in the fading light, and jaws that could easily crush her. But there was something in the way he moved, almost hesitantly, like he was trying to understand her fear rather than provoke it. In that moment, Lily felt a mix of terror and an inexplicable sense of curiosity about this creature. He didn't lunge at her like she expected. Instead, he paused, tilting his head slightly, his dark eyes studying her with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't expected. In the depths of the swamp, Snapper had encountered countless humans over the years, each with their own intent. Some came to hunt him, others to take photographs or gawk at his size. But never had he met one quite like this girl. The sound of her sobs pulled at something deep within him, stirring a feeling he couldn't quite place. It was as if he recognized her vulnerability, her loneliness echoing his own in the quiet waters of the marsh. Snapper's instincts told him to retreat, to stay hidden beneath the murky surface, but another part urged him to draw closer. His mind raced through the memories of his past encounters, the sharp bites of pain when humans had sought to capture or harm him. Yet here was a girl, lost and crying, who seemed to need him. "Please, don't hurt me," Lily whispered, her voice trembling as she knelt, lowering herself closer to the ground. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, each thump reminding her of the fear that had gripped her since she lost her way. The swamp was strange and unfamiliar, a maze of shadows and sounds that filled her with dread. She didn't know what Snapper was thinking, but she sensed he was not like the others. He didn't seem hungry for her fear or eager to chase her away. He seemed, in a peculiar way, just as confused as she was. With a trembling breath, she whispered, "I'm lost. I don't know how to get home." Snapper let out a soft grunt, a sound that reverberated through the still air, both acknowledging her fear and echoing his own confusion. He sensed the girl's innocence, the fragility of her spirit reflected in the way she held herself. She looked so small and helpless, yet there was a bravery in her that intrigued him. Snapper had never felt compelled to protect anyone before, yet something about this girl stirred an unfamiliar urge within him. Maybe it was her vulnerability that resonated with him. He had spent much of his life battling loneliness, an outcast in a world filled with creatures that saw him as a monster. He wanted to reach out, to bridge the chasm of fear that lay between them, but how could he? "Why are you crying?" Snapper thought, even though he couldn't speak. He wished he could somehow communicate with her, show her he meant no harm. As he moved a little closer, the muddy bank shifted beneath his weight, and Lily flinched, bracing herself for a sudden attack. But Snapper remained still, letting her take in the moment. He allowed her a moment to breathe, to gather her courage. In the depths of his heart, he felt a strange connection forming, a bond that transcended species. Lily's fear was palpable, but so was her yearning for safety. It reminded him of the longing he felt when he watched other creatures bond, the camaraderie he craved but could never have. Why do I feel like I need to protect her? Snapper wondered as he lingered near the water's edge. She was so small, yet she radiated an energy that both frightened and fascinated him. Snapper moved closer, testing the waters of their interaction. He dipped his snout into the shallow water, causing a gentle ripple that startled Lily. She stepped back instinctively but then paused, her curiosity piqued despite her fear. "What are you doing?" she asked softly, almost as if she was trying to coax him. Snapper stayed low, observing her reaction. He was acutely aware of the shifting dynamics of their meeting. He could sense her heart rate slow as she regarded him with a mix of fear and wonder. It dawned on him that perhaps they were both looking for something in each other. He was a creature of the swamp, hardened by years of survival, and she was a girl lost in a world that seemed too big and too frightening. Maybe she could see past his jagged teeth and tough exterior, just as he was trying to look beyond her tears and see the girl behind them. With a gentle nudge, he splashed a bit of water her way, as if trying to say, "I'm not here to hurt you." "Are you trying to talk to me?" Lily asked, a hint of a smile breaking through her fear. Snapper tilted his head again, hoping she would understand. He felt a warmth spreading in his chest, something he hadn't experienced before. He was a crocodile, a predator, yet in that moment, he felt more like a guardian than a monster. Lily stood up a little straighter, her fear beginning to ebb as she realized Snapper wasn't moving to attack her. "You're not going to hurt me, are you?" she ventured, inching closer again. Snapper remained still, watching her with unblinking eyes, silently assuring her that he meant no harm. They shared a moment of silence, an unspoken understanding settling between them. Snapper noticed how the sunlight danced off the water, casting reflections that shimmered like stars. He felt a rush of hope. Maybe this connection was meant to be. Despite their differences, they were both seeking comfort in an unpredictable world. The bond began to form, fragile but palpable, and Snapper knew he wanted to protect her. He didn't want to scare her away. He wanted to show her the beauty of the swamp, the hidden wonders that lay just beneath the surface. Lily took a deep breath, her heart pounding less wildly than before. "You're beautiful," she said, surprising even herself. Snapper blinked, taken aback by the compliment. He had always been seen as fearsome, a creature to be avoided, but here was a girl who saw him for what he truly was, a creature of the wild, majestic in his own right. It made something swell in him, an urge to prove to her that he could be more than just a creature of instinct. "Can you help me?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Snapper nodded subtly, and for the first time, he felt a purpose stirring within him. As Lily began to step forward, she felt a flicker of excitement mingled with her lingering fear. She had never been this close to a crocodile, and she could hardly believe her eyes as she took in the details of Snapper's scales, the way they shimmered in the light, and the sheer size of him. She had heard stories of crocodiles, fearsome and dangerous, yet here was one who seemed almost gentle, inquisitive even. "I don't know how to get home," she admitted, her voice quivering slightly. Snapper tilted his head, sensing her urgency. He couldn't speak, but he could guide her. He decided then that he would help her find her way back, even if it meant confronting whatever dangers lurked in the swamp. He swam closer to the bank, his massive form moving gracefully through the water, and Lily felt a surge of trust. "Thank you," she whispered, her fear beginning to fade as she saw the determination in Snapper's eyes. Together, they stood on the brink of a new adventure, an unlikely pair bound by circumstance and a shared desire for companionship. Snapper felt the thrill of protecting someone for the first time in his life. He was no longer just a crocodile in a swamp, he was a protector, a friend. As Lily stepped closer, he took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their connection grounding him. She was the first human to see him as more than a monster, and he vowed silently to keep her safe, no matter the cost. Suddenly, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves and sending ripples across the surface of the water. Lily glanced around, her heart racing again. "What was that?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the sounds of the swamp. Snapper's instincts kicked in, and he tensed, ready for whatever might come their way. "Stay close to me," he thought, wishing he could convey the message to her directly. They were both aware that the swamp held more than just beauty, danger lurked in the shadows, and they had to be ready for anything. As the evening light began to fade, Snapper turned his gaze back to Lily, feeling a sense of determination. He would help her find her way home, and in doing so, he would prove to himself that he was capable of more than just survival. They were on the precipice of a journey that would change them both forever. Lily felt the warmth of courage igniting within her. She was no longer alone in this vast, wild world. With Snapper by her side, she felt a flicker of hope. They would navigate the treacherous waters together, facing whatever challenges came their way. The swamp, once a place of fear, was now a landscape of potential adventure, and she was ready to embrace it. Snapper dipped his head, gesturing for her to follow as he glided through the water, leaving behind ripples of possibility. "Let's find a way home," Lily said, her spirit rekindled. And with that, they set off into the depths of the swamp, an extraordinary friendship blossoming amid uncertainty. Together, they were no longer just a girl and a crocodile, they were partners in an adventure, two unlikely friends ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. What they didn't yet realize was that their journey would test their courage, forge an unbreakable bond, and ultimately reveal the truth about themselves and the world around them. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the swamp, they both felt a thrilling anticipation for what was to come. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of a remarkable story, one that would defy expectations and transform them both forever. The sounds of the swamp faded into a tense silence as Lily sat on the muddy riverbank, her heart racing. The tears that had streamed down her face now dried in streaks, leaving her skin feeling tight and uncomfortable. She felt utterly alone, trapped in a world that had become foreign and frightening. The lush green foliage surrounding her only deepened the sense of isolation. Every rustle of leaves seemed to whisper secrets she couldn't comprehend. With each passing moment, her situation felt more hopeless. Lily took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I'm lost," she murmured softly, her voice barely breaking through the stillness. She looked around helplessly, hoping against hope that someone would appear, anyone who could help her find her way home. But as the shadows grew longer and the sun dipped lower in the sky, the reality of her abandonment set in like a heavy weight on her chest. She was not just lost, she was alone, truly alone. As she gazed into the murky water, her reflection stared back at her, a small girl, tousled hair, tear-streaked cheeks, and wide, frightened eyes. Suddenly, the glistening surface of the water shifted, and a familiar shape broke through the surface, Snapper, the crocodile she had seen earlier. Panic surged through her, and she instinctively shrank back, unsure of what this creature would do. But something about the way Snapper moved caught her attention. Instead of approaching her with the predatory grace she expected, he seemed cautious, his eyes filled with an almost curious energy. Snapper swam closer, his large body gliding through the water with surprising gentleness. He paused just a few feet from her, and his gaze softened as he listened to her quiet sobs. His instincts as a predator battled against a new feeling, one that stirred deep within him, an urge to protect rather than to attack. The little girl, despite her tears, seemed vulnerable, and he found himself tilting his head, intrigued by her sadness. In that moment, the fearsome crocodile was transformed. He was not merely a creature of the swamp, but something more, a guardian in a world that had turned hostile for Lily. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes broke the fragile connection between them. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Lily's heart raced as she turned her head, scanning the underbrush for signs of movement. Snapper sensed her tension and stiffened, ready to defend the girl he barely knew. It was then that a figure emerged from the foliage, an unkempt man with a sinister look in his eyes, a net slung over his shoulder and a greedy smirk that sent chills down Lily's spine. The poacher's gaze darted between Snapper and Lily, his expression shifting from surprise to amusement as he licked his lips in anticipation. Well, what do we have here?" he sneered, taking a step closer, clearly underestimating the crocodile's protective instincts. "A little girl lost in the swamp and a big, dumb crocodile. This will make for a fine catch." Fear gripped Lily as the poacher's intentions became clear. "Snapper, run," she shouted, the urgency in her voice rising as she felt the danger loom closer. She realized that her cries had drawn not just a friend, but also a predator of a different kind, a human who viewed the creatures of the swamp as mere trophies. Snapper looked at Lily, then back at the poacher. He understood what he had to do. With a fierce determination, Snapper positioned himself between the girl and the advancing threat. His massive jaws opened slightly, revealing sharp teeth, and a low growl rumbled deep within his throat. The poacher paused, taken aback by the sudden display of defiance. "You think that thing can stop me?" he scoffed, reaching for the net in his hand. But Lily's fears turned to hope. She believed in the bond they were forging, even in such a perilous moment. "Snapper, please," Lily urged, her voice a mix of fear and encouragement. "You can do this. We have to protect each other." The words echoed in Snapper's mind, igniting a fierce loyalty that pulsed through him. He was not just a crocodile anymore, he was a protector, a defender of this small, frightened girl who had shown him a glimmer of trust in a world that often deemed him a monster. As the poacher lunged forward, Snapper sprang into action. He surged from the water with unexpected speed, sending a splash of murky swamp water into the air. The sudden movement startled the poacher, who stumbled back, his eyes wide with disbelief. Snapper snapped his powerful jaws, the sound echoing like thunder in the stillness. The poacher hesitated, trying to gauge whether to fight or flee. Lily watched in awe as Snapper defended her. The crocodile's movements were agile and swift, driven by a primal instinct to protect his newfound friend. She felt a surge of courage within her, and instead of cowering behind Snapper, she stood her ground beside him. "You won't hurt us," she shouted defiantly, surprising herself with her own bravery. The poacher, realizing he was outmatched, snarled in frustration. "You think you can scare me with that oversized lizard?" he shouted, brandishing his net. But there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Snapper advanced, jaws snapping closer to the poacher, sending droplets of water flying. The poacher, unable to make a rational decision, turned to flee, knowing he was no match for the fierce crocodile. "Run, Snapper!" Lily yelled, her heart racing. She didn't know if they were truly safe yet, but the sight of the poacher retreating filled her with hope. Snapper lunged after the man, a fierce hiss escaping his throat as he chased him into the underbrush. The swamp erupted with noise as the poacher crashed through the foliage, desperate to escape the fearsome crocodile. Once the danger had passed, Snapper returned to Lily's side, panting heavily as he settled back into the water. They exchanged a look that spoke volumes. In that moment, they were allies, bonded by the shared experience of survival. Lily couldn't believe how brave Snapper had been, how he had risked himself to protect her. She felt a surge of gratitude and affection for the creature who had been both a threat and a savior. "Thank you, Snapper," Lily said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "You saved me." She knelt beside the water's edge, looking into his deep, intelligent eyes. In that moment, they understood each other in a way that transcended words. Snapper's heart swelled with something new, pride and companionship, something he had never felt before. As they sat together in the waning light of the day, a sense of calm settled over the swamp. The sounds of nature resumed, and the fears that had gripped Lily began to fade away. "I don't know how I got lost," she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. "But now I know I'm not alone anymore." Snapper floated nearby, his body gliding through the water as he listened to her. Lily took a deep breath, filled with newfound resolve. She knew she needed to find her way home, but she was no longer afraid. Snapper had shown her that even in the most terrifying circumstances, there was hope and strength to be found in unlikely friendships. Together, they could navigate the challenges ahead, and for the first time, she felt that they would be okay. Just then, a chorus of croaking frogs echoed around them, breaking the comfortable silence. Lily smiled at Snapper, grateful for the bond they were forging. They would face whatever came next together, united in their fight against the odds. "Let's find my way home," she said, a determined gleam in her eye. Snapper gave a small grunt in agreement, his eyes sparkling with the thrill of adventure. As they moved away from the riverbank, Lily felt lighter, her heart no longer weighed down by fear. She had a companion who understood her struggles, someone who would stand by her side. Snapper swam alongside her, and together they ventured deeper into the swamp, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them on their journey. In the distance, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the landscape. The shadows lengthened, and the world around them transformed into a place of mystery and wonder. Lily and Snapper were on the brink of an adventure unlike anything they had ever experienced. The swamp held many secrets, and with each step, they were ready to uncover them together. As the last light of day faded, Lily knew they had formed an unbreakable bond. She looked at Snapper, who had shifted from being a creature to a friend, and felt a surge of gratitude for the courage they had found in each other. The journey ahead would be filled with uncertainty, but as long as they were together, Lily felt ready to face anything. The swamp felt eerily quiet. The only sound was Lily's racing heartbeat and the occasional croak of a frog hidden among the reeds. Snapper, the crocodile, had positioned himself protectively in front of her, his massive body an imposing barrier against the outside world. As they both caught their breath, the tension in the air shifted, sending a shiver down Lily's spine. The poacher had emerged from the shadows, a figure cloaked in a tattered jacket, eyes glinting with a menacing intent. The poacher's gaze swept over the scene, his lips curling into a cruel smile as he spotted the little girl sitting on the bank. Well, what do we have here?" he sneered, his voice low and mocking. "A lost little girl all alone in the swamp? And look at that," he said, gesturing at Snapper, "a nice big crocodile to boot. What a lucky day for me." Lily felt a rush of fear wash over her, the poacher's words hanging heavy in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. She instinctively backed away, her heart pounding against her chest. Snapper turned slightly, his eyes narrowing, sensing the threat that the man posed. The poacher had a net slung over his shoulder, its ominous presence clear as he advanced with predatory intent. "Don't you worry, sweetheart. I'm not going to hurt you," the poacher said, his voice dripping with false sweetness. "Just going to take that crocodile off your hands, and then you'll be free to go home." He took another step closer, the muck squelching under his boots as he approached them with a swagger that made Lily's skin crawl. "Snapper, run!" Lily cried out, her voice trembling. She didn't want to abandon the crocodile who had somehow managed to protect her. But the danger was real, and she needed to act. The thought of losing her newfound friend sent a wave of panic coursing through her veins. Snapper sensed Lily's fear and determination. He could feel her trust in him, and it sparked a fire within his reptilian heart. He had never been one to back down from a challenge, and this poacher was not going to take either of them without a fight. With a guttural growl, Snapper shifted his massive body, readying himself for the confrontation. "Crocodile meat is worth a pretty penny," the poacher continued, his eyes gleaming with greed. "I can sell you both, one for a pet shop and the other for a dinner plate." He reached for the net, a predatory grin spreading across his face. But in that moment, something shifted in the air. Snapper's instincts kicked in. He wasn't just a crocodile, he was a protector. As the poacher lunged forward to throw the net, Snapper let out a fierce roar, a sound that echoed through the swamp, sending a shockwave of fear through the poacher. "Get away from us!" Lily shouted, her voice laced with defiance. The bond between her and Snapper had strengthened, and she knew they needed to work together. "You can't have him." With that, Snapper charged forward, his massive jaws snapping shut just inches from the poacher, sending him stumbling back. The force of Snapper's movement created a splash of water that soaked the poacher from head to toe. "What the poacher yelled, his confidence wavering as he slipped in the mud, momentarily losing his footing. Lily could see the moment fear replaced arrogance in the poacher's eyes. Snapper stood tall, his sharp teeth bared, ready to defend the girl who had shown him kindness. With each heartbeat, the swamp seemed to hold its breath, watching as the showdown unfolded. "Back off, you fool," the poacher shouted, but his bravado was crumbling. He scrambled to regain his footing, glancing around for an escape route. But Snapper was relentless, moving with surprising speed for a creature of his size. Lily took a step forward, emboldened by Snapper's courage. You can't hurt us, she yelled, her voice rising above the chaos. She felt a surge of power as she stood beside Snapper, who seemed to draw strength from her presence. You'll have to go through both of us. The poacher hesitated, clearly rattled. You're just a little girl. You think you can stop me, he scoffed, but his voice wavered. The reality of facing a crocodile was setting in, and he was starting to question his choices. Snapper advanced again, his powerful tail swishing through the water, creating waves that lapped against the bank. The poacher's bravado was fading as he realized the crocodile was not going to back down. All right, he shouted, raising his hands in surrender. I didn't mean any harm. But Lily wasn't ready to let him off that easily. You can't just take Snapper away. He's my friend, she insisted, standing firm beside the giant reptile. The poacher looked from Lily to Snapper, his expression shifting from menace to desperation. Listen, kid. This is all a big misunderstanding. I just wanted to make a quick buck. You think I'm scared of a crocodile? He took a cautious step back, still keeping his distance from Snapper's sharp teeth. Snapper let out a warning growl, his powerful body poised to strike if necessary. The poacher was beginning to realize that his greed had put him in a precarious position. Lily watched with determination, knowing they were winning this battle together. Just leave us alone. Lily shouted, stepping forward, emboldened by Snapper's presence. You're not welcome here. The poacher's bravado faltered as he took in the fierce resolve of the girl standing before him. For the first time, he was faced with the reality of the situation. He was outmatched. With a final glare, he turned on his heel, slipping and stumbling through the mud as he fled the scene. You'll regret this, he shouted back, but his voice was distant now, echoing as he retreated into the depths of the swamp. As the poacher disappeared from sight, a sense of victory washed over Lily. She turned to Snapper, who was still on guard, watching the path the intruder had taken. We did it, she exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. Snapper relaxed his posture, letting out a deep, rumbling sigh that seemed to resonate throughout the swamp. The immediate danger had passed, but they both knew this was just the beginning of their friendship. Lily reached out a hand, gently patting Snapper's scaly head. Thank you for protecting me, Snapper, she whispered, tears of relief welling in her eyes. I didn't know what I would do without you. Snapper looked at her with a mix of understanding and affection. In that moment, they shared a bond that transcended species. The fear and loneliness that had once engulfed Lily began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of hope and adventure. As they stood together on the riverbank, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow over the swamp. Lily felt a surge of gratitude for the crocodile who had become her unlikely hero. I know we can face anything together, she said, her heart swelling with newfound strength. Snapper let out a soft grunt, a sound that Lily had come to recognize as his way of communicating. They were partners now, bound by a shared experience that had changed both of their lives forever. With the poacher gone, a sense of calm returned to the swamp. The frogs resumed their croaking, and the gentle rustling of leaves filled the air. Lily took a deep breath, feeling a sense of belonging in this wild and untamed place. She knew that no matter what lay ahead, she wouldn't have to face it alone. Together, they turned their eyes toward the river, ready to navigate the unknown. There was a world of adventure waiting for them, and they were ready to embrace it, side by side. As the sunlight glinted off the water, illuminating the chaos unfolding in the swamp, Snapper stood firm. His heart raced, not from fear, but from an instinctive urge to protect the girl who had unknowingly forged a bond with him. The poacher, a rugged man clad in mud-stained clothes and a twisted grin, eyed Lily with predatory intent, but his gaze quickly shifted back to Snapper. You think you can scare me off, he taunted, brandishing his net like a weapon. Lily, her small frame shaking, stood behind Snapper, peering around the crocodile's powerful body. Stay away from us, she yelled, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her. Snapper could sense her fear, yet he also felt her courage. It was a strange feeling for a creature often seen as the terror of the swamp, but the way she looked at him made him feel something different, something protective and fierce. Snapper growled, a deep rumble that echoed across the water. He could see the poacher's confidence waver for just a moment. The man's eyes darted back to Lily, and Snapper knew he had to act fast. This was no ordinary girl, she was vulnerable yet strong, and he couldn't let anything happen to her. With a sudden burst of energy, Snapper lunged forward, splashing water everywhere. He had to intimidate the poacher, to make it clear that this swamp was his territory, and he wouldn't let anyone harm Lily. "Back off, you oversized lizard," the poacher sneered, but Snapper could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. It was now or never. With a swift motion, Snapper snapped his powerful jaws just inches from the poacher's feet, creating a wave that sent mud and water spraying in every direction. The poacher stumbled back, his bravado quickly fading as he realized he was facing a creature that wasn't afraid to defend its territory. Lily watched, wide-eyed, as Snapper charged forward. Her heart raced, not just from fear but from excitement. She had never seen a crocodile like this one. He was not just a monster lurking in the depths, but a protector, standing firm against danger. "You can do it, Snapper. Don't let him hurt us," she shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. Snapper paused, glancing back at her. The determination in her eyes fueled him. This girl believed in him, and that was more than enough motivation. He could feel an unspoken bond forming between them, a connection forged through shared fear and the fight for survival. With renewed vigor, he faced the poacher again, growling louder, a low rumble that echoed off the trees lining the swamp. The poacher hesitated, shifting nervously from foot to foot. "You think you can scare me off with some hissing? I've dealt with bigger beasts than you," he blustered, but there was a tremor in his voice that Snapper could sense. The man took a step forward, brandishing the net. "You're just a dumb reptile. This little girl won't save you." But Snapper wasn't about to back down. He lunged again, this time with greater force, snapping his jaws close enough that the poacher felt the wind from his breath. The man yelped, his bravado fading as he stumbled back into the muck. Okay. Let's not get hasty here," he shouted, but Snapper could see the fear spreading across his face. Lily felt a rush of adrenaline as she witnessed Snapper's fierce defense. "You're amazing, Snapper," she exclaimed, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. "We can do this together." With every passing moment, the poacher's confidence waned, and Snapper could see that victory was within reach. "Back off, or I'll make you regret it." Snapper growled, the swamp water swirling around him as he prepared for another charge. The poacher, realizing he was outmatched, glanced around for an escape route. "You won't get away with this," he shouted, but Snapper could sense his resolve crumbling. With one final, defiant roar, Snapper lunged, sending a massive wave crashing toward the poacher. The man lost his balance, slipping and falling into the muck. Snapper seized the moment, snapping his powerful jaws again, this time just above the waterline, making it clear he would not let the man escape without a lesson. Lily cheered, her heart pounding with excitement. "We did it, Snapper. You scared him away." But the poacher was not done yet. He scrambled to his feet, his eyes wild with panic. "This isn't over," he yelled, shaking mud from his clothes as he stumbled backward toward the edge of the swamp. Snapper glared, ready to chase him off, but Lily reached out a hand, stopping him. "Wait, Snapper. We don't need to hurt him. He's already scared," she said, her voice calm but firm. Snapper paused, understanding the girl's words. They had won this battle, and the poacher was no longer a threat. "Go on. Get out of here," Lily shouted at the poacher, who was now close to the tree-ling. The man hesitated, looking back at the fierce crocodile and the brave girl standing together. With one last glance filled with disbelief, he turned and ran, disappearing into the dense forest, leaving them victorious. Snapper watched the poacher vanish, a sense of pride swelling within him. He had protected Lily, and in doing so, he had found a friend. As the swamp quieted, Lily stepped forward, her face lighting up with joy. "You were incredible, Snapper. I couldn't have done it without you." Snapper felt a warm rush at her words. He had always been viewed as a fearsome creature, but here was a girl who saw beyond that. She recognized his courage, his strength, and the bond they had formed in this moment of danger. "Thank you for standing up for me," Lily continued, her eyes shining with admiration. "You're not just a crocodile, you're my hero." Snapper felt a strange, comforting sensation. It was a feeling he had never known, a sense of companionship, a purpose beyond just survival. Together, they stood at the water's edge, the sun dipping lower in the sky, casting a warm glow across the swamp. "What do we do now?" Lily asked, glancing around. Snapper tilted his head, pondering. They had faced danger together, but now it was time to explore what lay ahead. "I think we should find a way out of here," Lily suggested. "Maybe you can help me get back to my home?" Snapper understood the importance of her words. While he was used to navigating the swamp alone, he now had a partner, someone to share the journey with. "Let's go," Lily said, taking a step toward the water. Snapper nodded, and with a swift movement, he slipped back into the depths, ready to guide her through the swamp. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by their unexpected friendship. As they swam side by side, Lily felt a surge of happiness. She had been lost and scared, but now she was not alone. Snapper was more than just a crocodile, he was her protector, her ally, and perhaps the best friend she could have ever imagined. "Where do you think we'll go?" she asked, glancing at Snapper. The crocodile responded with a gentle grunt, as if assuring her that they would find their way. The world felt brighter, the dangers of the swamp less daunting now that they were together. Suddenly, Lily spotted something shiny in the water. "What's that?" she exclaimed, pointing excitedly. Snapper turned to look, intrigued. "Let's check it out." With a shared sense of curiosity, they swam closer, their bond growing stronger with each adventure. What awaited them in the depths of the swamp was uncertain, but one thing was clear: they were no longer just a crocodile and a girl. They were partners in a world filled with possibilities, ready to face whatever came their way, side by side. Snapper's heart raced as he faced the poacher, the tension thickening the air between them. The swamp, usually a peaceful haven, felt charged with danger. The poacher, a grizzled man with a scruffy beard and eyes like dark coal, grinned as he brandished the net, ready to ensnare the crocodile he thought would be easy prey. But Snapper wasn't just any crocodile. He felt a strange, powerful bond with the girl who had spoken to him, the girl who had looked past his fearsome appearance and found something worthy of friendship. "Come on, Snapper. You can do it," Lily shouted, her voice trembling yet filled with determination. Her small figure stood on the bank, watching with wide eyes, her heart pounding in rhythm with Snapper's. He could sense her fear, but more importantly, he felt her courage, and that ignited a fire within him. He was not just a beast of the swamp, he was her protector. As the poacher lunged forward, Snapper reacted instinctively, springing into action. His massive tail whipped through the water, sending waves crashing against the shore. The poacher stumbled backward, momentarily caught off guard by the sheer force of the crocodile's movement. Snapper's powerful jaws snapped shut just inches away from the man's legs, a clear warning: he was not to be trifled with. The poacher cursed and took a step back, his bravado faltering. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. "You think you can scare me off, you overgrown lizard?" he shouted, attempting to mask his fear with bravado. But Snapper wasn't interested in words. He wanted to protect the girl who believed in him. He advanced, his eyes locked on the poacher's, a primal growl rumbling deep in his throat. Lily watched in awe as Snapper asserted himself, a magnificent creature fueled by instinct and a newfound purpose. She felt a rush of pride swell within her. This crocodile, once seen as a fearsome monster, was now her ally, her guardian. "Snapper, you can do it." "Show him," she urged, her voice rising above the cacophony of the swamp. In that moment, Snapper felt a surge of confidence. He lunged again, this time snapping his jaws just inches from the poacher's face. The man stumbled back, his eyes wide with shock. "What in the world?" he gasped, realizing he had underestimated the creature before him. The poacher was not prepared for a fight. He had only expected to catch an easy meal, but Snapper had proven to be a formidable opponent. You better back off now, Lily shouted, emboldened by Snapper's bravery. She stepped closer to the edge of the bank, her small frame silhouetted against the setting sun. You're not going to hurt him. Her spirit resonated with Snapper, and he could feel her unwavering support, strengthening his resolve. The poacher's bravado finally cracked as he glanced between the girl and the crocodile, realizing he was outmatched. I didn't sign up for this, he muttered, fear creeping into his voice. You think I'm afraid of a stupid reptile, he blustered, but his eyes betrayed him, darting back to Snapper, who was now in full attack mode. Snapper sensed the man's hesitation and decided to take advantage of it. He charged forward, his powerful legs propelling him through the shallow water. The splash echoed like a thunderclap, startling both the poacher and the birds nesting in the trees above. With a mighty roar, Snapper lunged, jaws wide open, and in that instant, he felt invincible. The poacher, realizing the gravity of his situation, turned to run, but Snapper was faster. He leaped through the water with surprising agility for such a large creature, blocking the poacher's path. Get away from us! Lily cried, her heart pounding as she watched the confrontation unfold. She felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility for Snapper and knew that they were in this together. Just as the poacher stumbled back into the murky depths of the swamp, Snapper snapped his jaws again, this time narrowly missing the man's coat. The poacher turned, desperation etched on his face. No! This can't be happening, he yelled, panic rising in his voice as he slipped in the mud. The realization dawned on him that he was in over his head. In that moment, something shifted in the air. Snapper sensed the poacher's defeat. The man took another step back, eyes wide, and then turned to flee. I'm out of here, he shouted, his voice trailing behind him as he disappeared into the dense foliage of the swamp, leaving behind only echoes of his footsteps. Lily cheered, her joy infectious as she jumped up and down on the riverbank. You did it, Snapper. You scared him away. She clapped her hands, her laughter ringing like music through the trees. The crocodile, panting and exhilarated, swam closer to the shore, allowing Lily to reach out and touch his rough, scaled skin. Snapper blinked at her, the adrenaline still coursing through him, but there was a newfound calmness settling over the swamp. He had defended Lily, and in doing so, he had discovered a sense of purpose he never knew he had. I couldn't have done it without you, he replied, his voice low but filled with gratitude. Lily knelt by the water's edge, her eyes sparkling with admiration. You're so brave, Snapper. I knew you could do it. She felt a rush of affection for the crocodile who had become her protector, her friend. In the midst of danger, they had forged a bond stronger than any fear she had ever known. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the swamp, Lily turned to Snapper with a determined look in her eyes. We need to find a way out of here, she said. I don't want to be lost again. The adventure had turned from fear to exhilaration, and she was ready to face whatever came next, with Snapper by her side. Snapper nodded, understanding her plight. Together, they could navigate the swamp, a team against the odds. Let's stick together, he replied, his voice steady. I'll help you find your way home. The promise of companionship filled the air, transforming the once lonely swamp into a place of friendship and adventure. With a newfound sense of purpose, they set off together, navigating through the twists and turns of the swamp. The sounds of chirping crickets and croaking frogs filled the air, providing a soothing backdrop to their journey. Lily felt safe with Snapper by her side, his presence a comforting reminder that she was no longer alone. As they ventured deeper into the swamp, the shadows grew longer, and the sun began to set. Lily glanced back at Snapper, who swam alongside her with a protective grace. What if we run into more dangers? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Snapper turned his head to look at her, his eyes sparkling with determination. We'll face them together, he assured her. You're brave, Lily. And I've got your back. The reassurance in his voice made her smile, and she felt emboldened by their bond. Suddenly, they heard a rustling in the bushes nearby, and both Lily and Snapper stopped in their tracks. What was that? Lily asked, her heart racing. Snapper's body tensed, ready to spring into action if needed. A moment later, a small otter popped its head out from the foliage, curiously eyeing the unusual pair. Lily laughed, relieved. "It's just an otter," she exclaimed. The creature waddled closer, seemingly unbothered by the giant crocodile beside her. Snapper relaxed, allowing the tension to dissipate as they shared a moment of laughter. The otter, seemingly friendly, playfully splashed water toward Snapper, who couldn't help but let out a playful growl in return. Lily giggled at their interaction, feeling the warmth of friendship fill her heart. "See? Even the otters know you're not scary," she teased, and Snapper responded with a playful huff. As the trio continued their journey, Lily marveled at the beauty of the swamp, now seen through a lens of adventure rather than fear. The world around her felt alive, vibrant, and full of possibility. She and Snapper shared stories of their lives, and in that exchange, their bond grew even stronger. With every step, they discovered more about each other, finding common ground in their hopes and dreams. Lily shared her love for exploring, and Snapper spoke of the wonders of the swamp and its hidden treasures. They laughed, they played, and they navigated the challenges of their surroundings together. As darkness fell, they reached a clearing where the moonlight danced upon the water, illuminating the path ahead. "This is beautiful," Lily said, her voice filled with awe. Snapper agreed, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. Together, they had faced a poacher, fought for each other's safety, and now stood on the precipice of a new adventure. The bond they had formed in the face of danger had transformed their lives, showing them that friendship could bloom in the most unexpected places. And in that serene moment, as the moon hung high above the swamp, Lily knew she had found a friend for life in Snapper, the crocodile who had defied his nature to protect her. With a heart full of gratitude and courage, she looked forward to the adventures that awaited them, knowing they would always face them side by side. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell.